rather, because of the great work that CRDB Tanzania and actually the CRDB group across the region is doing in this regard. So my name is Pedro Buzugu. I'm the head of business development at Invest Africa. We as an organization promote trade and investment across the African continent with a key objective of one, bringing international investors to the continent, and two, working very closely with African financial institutions to support their growth and development. That being said, I have a great panel here with me this morning. We have actually financiers that cover a whole range of instruments. So we have a commercial bank, we have development financial institutions, both African-owned as well as European, which is absolutely fantastic. So I can see, sorry Frank, thank you very much. I know you are on back-to-back speaking roles. I see you're extremely famous and sought after. So thank you very much, Frank. It's really, really appreciated. So with me, we have naturally Frank. I think you already know him. He's the CEO of the Tanzanian Agriculture Development Bank. Right to my right over here, we have Boma Rabalo, which is a Chief Commercial Officer at CRDB. To my left, we have Amadou Thiam, which is a Regional Head for Shelter Afrique. And we have Bernd Tillemann, which is the Regional Head for West Africa at DEG, the German DFI. So Bernard, let me start with you, and let me start with DEG, because we are talking about MSME financing, and of course there's always a lot of pressure for international DFIs and international partners to support and invest directly in MSMEs across the continent. So first and foremost, walk us through the sort of the investment journey of DEG, and maybe a bit of the work that you are currently doing in West Africa, because that's of course your region, in regards to SME financing.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Welcome. Thank you for having us. So DEG, I mean, as you might know, one of the largest bilateral DFI institutions for the private sector in Europe. We've been on the continent for very long. Africa has always been at our heart and in our DNA. So that's a given. I think last year we committed in total of 2.5 billion globally, of which up to 30% went into Africa. So how do we do that? Yes, we do that in the private sector only, infrastructure, corporate companies, and financial sector mainly. In West Africa, you can imagine, being based in Lagos, that this is a completely different sort of market and many companies around us. I quite like that, but certainly selection is difficult, and also covering the larger region, Côte d'Ivoire has become a very large market for us. And I think also I can really say in a soft declaration that Africa has, first of all, provided really benefits for us and for the companies we're working, because in the loan business we do, long-term loans, we have not had one single euro we lost. It's a very powerful statement.
You never lost a euro.
In Nigeria, we never lost a euro in the loan business. Our equity business is another story, Pedro.
Yeah.
But the loan business, generally in Africa, that we provide to banks, to infrastructure projects, is incredibly robust, even during COVID times. And I'm not tired to say these words, because it's really a big statement. And we have wonderful companies as our clients, and we will continue to do so. So in West Africa, certainly Nigeria is our largest market, where we have a very, very strong footprint in the financial sector, but also in the corporate companies. Equally, Côte d'Ivoire is becoming a very, very strong partner for us with many energy projects, and also more and more in the financial sector. So how do we do that? Long-term loans to such, yes, larger companies. So I cannot yet address the MSME space. But what I'm trying to say is you first of all support large companies with capital in their expansions. That in itself means they're also in the periphery, of course, working with smaller companies that benefit. It's an indirect reach, which we have to smaller companies. Yet, of course, we are directly financing them. Same for the big, large financial institutions, where in Nigeria we have a strong portfolio with the biggest banks, who are very, very important for us to reach SMEs, because our money goes to them, which is then on lent to SMEs. So this is an indirect reach. And the same I can say for the equity funds we're supporting. I think it's close to 50 on the continent, who then on invest our money into SMEs. Very, very important function they have. And certainly we're also now at a point where a little more addressing as MSMEs, we're moving more into venture capital. Yeah, we have a new strategy whereby in the coming years we want to do more in venture capital, reaching ever smaller companies, mostly via funds, but it's clearly a response to what we hear on the continent. This is a very youthful, dynamic continent with many, many small companies being out there, seeing opportunities, trying to access capital, which is sometimes very difficult for them. So we need to address that, and one way is that you will see us moving more into venture capital in the future. It's really an African topic. We are very much open for it, and this is one way we will try. Hope that covers a bit what we do on the continent. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we can go into a bit more detail shortly. But perhaps now opening the floor to Amadou. And Amadou, I know you are bilingual, but of course, please feel free to answer either in English or in French as you prefer. And we have simultaneous translation here. But Amadou, my question to you is about sort of Shelter Afrique, because Shelter Afrique has been sort of restructuring, has been growing a lot. And so I wanted to understand a bit how is that restructuring going, and how does sort of affordable housing, how do you see the link between the affordable housing, the work you do there, with the support of SMEs across the continent as well? What is your work in that regard? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Please, can you take your headset, because this matter is very important for us, so I will be more at ease to convey my message in French.
Of course.
Okay. Donc, Pedro, you are bilingual? Okay, good. Okay, d'abord, rappeler un peu c'est quoi Shelter Afrique. Shelter Afrique est une entité créée par la BAD, par Africari et aussi par 44 pays africains. Donc, c'est vraiment une entité dédiée au logement de manière générale et au logement social en particulier, mais surtout et de plus en plus au développement urbain. Donc, par rapport à la question que vous avez posée, nous sommes en pleine restructuration depuis 2023. Nous avons démarré une nouvelle stratégie qu'on a appelée le New Dawn, en fait. Et l'idée maintenant, c'est de ne plus uniquement regarder Shelter Afrique comme un financeur du logement, mais plutôt comme un financeur de toute la chaîne de valeur. Et c'est dans cette chaîne de valeur-là que nous pouvons retrouver l'ensemble des PME et PMI. Si vous regardez un peu rapidement, pour avoir un peu de contexte, le dernier rapport de McKinsey Global Institute, Line on the Move 2, ils ont identifié 5 grands secteurs qui seront, on va dire, les catalyseurs du développement économique de l'Afrique. Et par rapport à ces 5 thématiques, l'urbanisation saine en est, on va dire, un des piliers. Et pourquoi l'urbanisation saine est un des piliers? Nous avons la BAD qui nous a donné des chiffres récemment. D'ici 2 à 3 décennies maximum, nous allons avoir près de 60% des Africains qui seront dans des villes. Donc, en résumé, nous pouvons nous dire que les 25 à 30 prochaines années, il nous faudra construire des villes nouvelles, des villes tout entières, et non pas un projet immobilier ou 2 projets immobiliers. Et c'est dans ce sens-là que nous avons, nous, au niveau de Shelter Afrique, diversifié nos produits. On pourra y revenir dans les détails. Et déjà, je peux vous donner 2 types d'interventions. La première intervention, qui est une intervention classique, c'est de donner des lignes de crédit à des banques locales qui vont pouvoir les déployer directement au niveau des PME et PMI. Et la deuxième, que nous sommes en train de mettre en place, qui est une des innovations que nous avons démarré il y a de cela une année, c'est la mise en place de sous-fonds qui vont mobiliser certes du capital classique que nous avons, mais aussi du concessionnel pour pouvoir mettre à disposition de ces PME, PMI des ressources plus adaptées. Donc, je pense que dans les échanges à venir, nous pourrons entrer dans le détail.
Amadou, but tell me more about these sub facilities then. How do they work? Are they industry specific across the whole value chain? Who can benefit from these sub facilities? Is banks, or are we talking already about sort of specific projects? How does it work?
Ok, alors, pour être précis, ce que nous faisons, nous créons ce sous-fonds en prenant, on va faire du blended money en fait, et l'idée est d'identifier l'ensemble de la chaîne de valeur, donc l'ensemble des PME et PMI qui interviennent dans la chaîne de valeur, que ça soit en matériaux de construction, en services ou autres, et nous allons les attaquer directement ou indirectement. Directement via les banques, par exemple, CRDB peut avoir une ligne de financement et intervenir dans un pays en donnant, on va dire, un financement à une entreprise de carrelage ou bien à une entreprise de porte. Et aussi, nous pouvons intervenir directement en trade finance auprès de développeurs, par exemple, qui vont, eux, après, avoir une ligne de financement et acheter directement à une entreprise qui est en Tanzanie ou bien à une entreprise de matériaux de construction qui est au Nigeria. Voilà directement comment nous intervenons sur ces questions-là. Maintenant, une des choses très importantes peut-être qu'il faut partager ici, c'est que le marché africain des matériaux de construction est un marché à accompagner d'un point de vue, on va dire, structuration. Qu'est-ce que nous avons? Nous avons énormément d'informels, environ 80% sont dans l'informel. Par contre, c'est eux qui font concrètement le travail. Actuellement, nous avons un certain nombre de partenaires avec qui nous travaillons pour les aider à se structurer et surtout leur permettre d'avoir accès à un marché régional, voire sous-régional, et non pas seulement à un marché local. Et ça, nous avons des initiatives que nous allons lancer bientôt qui vont permettre d'avoir cette vue sous-régionale, voire même africaine. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Amadou. And you touch on a very important point on the informal versus the formal market and how to reach underserved SMEs, right? Because that is also such a big challenge, isn't it? Boma, I mean, from the CRDB perspective, I mean, you are the biggest bank in Tanzania. You are now a regional player as well, extremely successful. How do you go about reaching perhaps the most underserved smaller and medium enterprises in Tanzania, and perhaps if you can also touch on other countries that you operate in? How does that work for CRDB?
Good morning, everyone, and once again, thank you for having us here on this specific panel. From CRDB and the way we are looking at MSMEs in total, we are looking at it in a different way. This is our special segment, and you might be aware, 2 days ago, we scooped an opportunity to become the best bank on the SME. So
that is very much true. That is very true. So for the ones that are not aware, CRDB won the best SME Bank of the Year at the African Banker Awards on Wednesday evening. So congratulations on that.
Yes, so we are really grateful, and maybe that is part of why we are here. And the good news, Pedro, is that all these gentlemen sitting here, I'm working with them very closely to attend and address the challenges that our MSMEs are having within Tanzania. Predominantly, we can say, statistic-wise, 80% of the businesses that we have across the world are SMEs. But when you come to Tanzania, we are speaking on the statistics up to 95%. And on these specific statistics, and this is not only catering for Tanzania, but also we are seeing the same trend when you are speaking in Burundi and Congo, where we do our operations for now. Uniquely, out of this 95%, we see a bigger chunk of them are actually women and youth. And this is really giving us a lot of opportunity and predominantly this is also creating an opportunity for us to do more partnering. You will see programs like AFAWA are also operating in Tanzania, and we are championing that. That is because there is a good research that we have done, and we see there is a lot of opportunities on how we are able to support the SME. Importantly, is to say, when we are speaking about MSME within the markets that we operate, we also do in relationship with the definition of SMEs in relationship to IFC. So we use basically the same criteria to identify the MSMEs. And as a result of that, we have decided to make a deliberated decision to make, first of all, MSME sector to be one of our priority within the bank. So this is one of our key pillar in making sure that we are able to transform the livelihood of our people, to change the life of our economy by making sure that we are able to support these key and vibrant economy players within Tanzania. So that is one. And by doing that, we have engaged with several financial institutions to make sure not only that we are able to give facilities, but at the same time we are able to create a conducive atmosphere that will give them one opportunity to be able to grow. So I can tell you, if you go visit in our website and see the other relationship that we have accessed $320 million from DFC.
That all for SME lending?
That is for SME lending, and part of it, 20 million, we are doing it in Burundi, and we are looking on additional funding on how we are able also to support our subsidiary in DRC as well. We have accessed $150 million, million euros from EIB, European Investment Bank. Also, this goes to SME. As I'm speaking here, I'm accessing funds from my friend here, Frank, almost 20 million guarantees from TADB to support the MSME. I have a transaction with the DEG, and we have also had a very good engagement with Amadou in making sure that we're also able to support some of these other customers through SMEs and retailers on the housing finance. And we are coming up with this particular program. So you can see our intentional approach to make sure that we identify MSME as a key sector. At the second time, we are taking financial support to do that, and this comes as a funding and the non-funding to really do a de-risking of the portfolio that we have, and we have seen a tremendous opportunities. We are working with AGF, and we have been able to give facilities. We are working with the Propaco on the MSMEs, and one of the experience that really sounds very good, we are also not seeing people that are defaulting to that particular extent.
That was asked, what are your PL?
Yes, yes. So actually our NPL is below 3% on these specific sectors, but amazingly is to identify and know that there are some of the SMEs who could not be able to access fund because they do not have enough collaterals. And through these partners, we have been able to enable them to access that. We are having also specific engagements with the telcos, MNOs, where we are able to give digital loans. We have created an impact for over 11 million customers in Tanzania who have been able to access digital loans. And the same is also expanded in our other markets that we operate, especially in Burundi, where we have been there for over 10 years. But similarly, we have gone to an extra mile where, as CRDB, we initiated introduction of an impact wing, which we call CRDB Bank Foundation. And through the CRDB Bank Foundation, we are doing financial inclusion, especially to the underserved um, youth and women, where we are able to bring them to the position that they are able to be financially included, and through a specific program we call it Embed, which is basically a seed capital, where we are training them and we enable them, and then we give them seed capital to at least start doing business. And with this, it's really placing us in the best position to become a unique bank that really serves the need of MSMEs.
Bom, just one quick question before we bring Frank to the discussion. It's clearly that you're able to raise a lot of capital, but is it easy then to on-lend to the SME segment? Or do you struggle to find good SMEs locally to on-lend to?
No, so one of the very unique support that we get on this specific arrangement, and I'm always grateful with the relationship that we have had, part of the funding that we are receiving comes with technical assistance,
Okay, yeah.
and partly grant or specific training, which assist us in also developing the capacity of the MSMEs, and at the same time we are able to create good tools that are supporting us. And now we are going now to the specific initiative that will enable us also to do a quick review by having credit scoring tools that will assist and check also on behavioral changes that can support us on lending, especially on these small tickets. So it really makes a lot of sense with the support that we are getting, that we are able to address that and get the right MSMEs.
Okay, no, that's absolutely fantastic. So I think, Frank, let's come over to you, because I think it's impossible to speak of the SME segment without addressing, of course, agriculture, naturally, and the agribusiness sector. So Bom already explained a bit of the relationship, for example, that CRDB and the Tanzania Agriculture Development Bank have, but tell us a bit more about the current work that you are doing in Tanzania, and specifically on the agriculture sector. Tell us a bit more about how you are supporting SMEs in Tanzania.
Thank you, Pedro. As I said, my name is Frank Nyabundega. I'm the Managing Director of Tanzania Agricultural Development Bank, which is the pioneer development and financial institutions specified in agriculture financing. Basically, we always say when you come to Tanzania and you want to talk about agricultural financing, we are the mother and fathers of agricultural financing in Tanzania. And we always, and that's why you have seen Boma here saying that we have been supporting them much as in terms of balance sheet size, in terms of profitability. It's a very big bank. Now you try to imagine a bank that has been in existence for 10 years. This is our 10th year. We can be able to support the giant bank that has been in the industry for 50 years. It's because we want, one, agriculture to be financed. Before TADB, a lot of banks in Tanzania were looking at agricultural sector as a very risky sector that they could not be able to finance. And we had to lead the way so that people could really, or other banks could really see that if TADB can be able to do, why can't we be able to do? And that's what you can be able to see currently. The agricultural sector has really received a lot of credit as compared to probably 5 years ago. If you look into the data, last 4 years ago, the credit into agricultural sector was less than $1 billion. Right now, we're talking of almost $1.7 billion. That is the credit which has gone to agricultural sector. Of course,
what changed?
Sorry?
Why the increase? Is this because there are more and better companies?
Yes, I'll speak on that. The change that has happened is that the last 4 years, we had a political leadership change, and the current president or the current regime has been embracing agriculture as the sector that can be able to transform economy. So the first and foremost thing that the current regime did was to increase the budgetary support on agricultural sector. It increased the budget support from $107 million to almost right now around to $354 million. So when you increase the budgetary support on the Ministry of Agriculture, what does that mean? It calls for financing so that you go hand in hand with the what has been provided in the budget. And that's why we've seen commercial banks now either supporting aggregators, who most of them are MSMEs, or supporting even on the production side, which we find out mostly are youth and women. So TRDB, when it comes into that, one, we have some products which as a catalytic role for us to ensure that agriculture is being supported in Tanzania. We have created some of the products that can be able to support commercial banks or microfinance financial institutions, or even commercial community banks. We have community banks in Tanzania, which reaches to the roots where the farmers are. So we have been giving them, we have around 3 products that we do as a credit kind of products. The first one is the small order credit guarantee scheme. The small order credit guarantee scheme, of course, covers for the MSMEs mostly because they are small order, and mostly this touches on women and youth, whereby we guaranteed up to a level of 50% for normal SMEs, MSMEs, and then when it's youth and the women rated, we guarantee up to 7%. Bama said here that we've given them to the tune of $20 million, and I'm happy that the $20 million that we've been able to give them in terms of guarantee has been able to unlock $58.4 million credit that has gone to MSMEs. So that means that if we would have not done that, it would have not, they would have not reached these people. And the reason why we do that, because we know a lot of MSMEs, they don't have security. So since they don't have security, they're not bankable. So we are making them bankable by giving them securities. But not only that, we don't only end there. We have a product, we call it wholesale lending, whereby we know that commercial banks, they get funds which are very short-term related. So they cannot be able to give long-term related funds. So we give them funds to the level of 10 years so that they can be able to lend to MSMEs, so that they can be to steer up the economy, especially in the agricultural sector. So we have also been giving them facilities in terms of wholesale lending, which is the longer term, but also we bring them to the table in terms of what we call co-financing. And when we have done a transaction, especially on the CAPEX, and then we call the commercial banks come in on the OPEX, they have a lot of confidence, because whatever TADB does, it becomes like a marking scheme for the commercial banks to go and mark whatever as far as credit is concerned. Why? It's because we invest a lot of training to people, especially on the agricultural financing. We have what we call a IVCF model, integrated value chain financing model, which calls to finance from the production to the marketing side. And that we have seen how we link the linkages between the production to up to the marketing side. As seen, Boma said about the NPL ratio being very low into the agricultural sector. TADB as an NPL last year, we had an NPL ratio of 2.67%. Why is this 2.67%? And previously it was probably higher, 20% or 25% in the banking sector. It's because when TAB came in, had to start on the technical assistant part to train. We do trainings to PFI's staff who are doing credit. So we call them in the room through other institutions like the central bank. The central bank, they have training academy, which we use mostly central bank to train their staff, the commercial banks. And then TADB pays for that to ensure that whatever they're doing from the origination, from the putting up the transaction, because sometimes you find out the transaction goes bad, it's because the way it has been structured. So structuring of the deals, especially on agriculture, because they are very specialized. When you structure a deal which is seasonal, kind of a transactional, it's very different from a trader. So if the commercial banks are used to fund trading, and then now you come in when you want to give funds which are seasonal, you have to ensure that the proceeds that comes in to repay your loan has to be hand in hand with what you have been structured. So we have been training commercial banks
Quite
in
a robust
Tanzania.
system.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have been training commercial banks in Tanzania personnel, and that's what has made them now, they structure deals well. They structure deals according to what they should be able to structure, and we've seen generally the NPL ratio on agricultural sector going down tremendously because we've been able even to link from the production. We say you produce, we should be able to have, in terms of post-harvest management, maybe areas where you're going to store, and then maybe the market or processing, the agro-processors. So we link them. And that's why we call them integrated value chain financing model, which links from production up to the market.
Okay, friend, that's absolutely fantastic. And I will open up to the audience in a couple of minutes. So please feel free to think about your questions, write them down, and hopefully we'll have a couple of interesting questions from you guys. I do know that we have people always watching us online, but unfortunately we don't have access to their questions. But Bernard, I will. So you never lost. DG never lost a euro on a debt side. We have very low NPLs here in Tanzania. This is all fantastic and great to know and great to hear. When we were preparing for our panel yesterday, and it's been already touched here about all the technical assistance that is needed, and how to ensure that SMEs, MSMEs will be able to get the financing, but also then how to utilize that financing in a productive manner for them to grow, create jobs and development. So what are the ingredients you think for a small and medium enterprise that wants to access that capital, be it from you, be it from CRDB, be it from Shelter Afrique? What do you think are the most important things that we should look into, and how should we ensure that the technical assistance is tailored to the needs of the small and medium enterprise?
Thank you. Yes. Less than 3% NPL, you're making many German banks jealous, I'm sure.
Yeah,
well done.
Let's not talk about European banks.
So, I mean, I also had an exchange with Boma this week, and I'm really grateful for him to elaborate on the role his bank can play. And what he says is, I would say, a statement that applies to the whole of the continent. Yeah, I mean, a successful bank in any country or in Africa addresses the needs that we have in the, let's call it, cry for support and funding that SMEs are getting ever louder with. You know, it's a very loud cry, you know, more and more. We've seen that in the last couple of years. So how do we include them? I certainly cannot reach them directly. I cannot do this without a successful bank like what CRDB outlined. And they are doing the groundwork, in a sense, to build their own market, to grow their own financial institution, maybe also with the support of us, but certainly also with technical assistance. And the question is, how do you apply technical assistance when you want to grow a market? You have to really, and that is your game on the ground, you know, you have to identify small companies, be they informal or half formalized, and really include them into the process of becoming your clients. And a lot of that is I think, centered around the big word of bankability. I've used it before. I think we all have and that's maybe also by means of technical assistance, maybe a responsibility, but also a positive one, to really include SMEs and MSMEs to formalize in such a sense. We're talking about financial governance, financial statements, financial education. I don't like the word education, but you know what I mean. To really include them in a way that they can apply for the money with a fairly complete and well-documented file. You know, with you, maybe even with us, it shouldn't make much of a difference if they were talking to us or to you, because what in essence needs to be the case is they have done their homework, they are fully well-governed, so that they are fully bankable. Based on that, any banker can make a decision to support them. And this is where I think technical assistance can play a big role. We can really support less formalized, more formalized companies to become bankable. How to define bankability? That comes from us and you and financial institutions. But this is one way where I feel we should all be looking at, to really support such companies in order to enable them to apply for funding and not be sort of half formalized. And technical assistance can play a big role in that, be it technical assistance that's channeled via our financial institutions on the continent, or maybe via other donor initiatives, where also technical assistance may come in, AFDB, IFC. They have very, very strong means to really do this, called upstream work, to really grow and identify SMEs to enable them to become bankable. I think that's a key to going forward.
Thank you very much. And from Shelter Africa, how do you define bankability? How does Shelter Africa looks at bankability? What are the ingredients that you look for on a project side?
Merci beaucoup. Effectivement, c'est une des questions qui ont fait que un peu nous avons changé de stratégie. Boma l'a dit tout à l'heure, nous évoluons dans un secteur qui très souvent n'est pas suffisamment structuré. C'est pour cela que en fait nous avons mis en place un nouveau produit qu'on a appelé le produit de advisory. Donc qu'est-ce que nous faisons? Nous accompagnons les banques, nous accompagnons les développeurs pour qu'ils puissent avoir une meilleure compréhension du secteur où ils interviennent et aussi de la définition des produits qui sont plus en relation avec l'écosystème où ils interviennent. Donc la question de la bancabilité, en fait, c'est ce qui un peu a impacté très souvent les entreprises ou bien les institutions financières qui interviennent dans le logement social et le logement de manière générale à deux niveaux. Très souvent, nous avons de la liquidité qu'on n'arrive pas à placer tout simplement parce que les projets ne sont pas bankable ou bien parce que les SMEs, par exemple, ils n'ont pas, on va dire, les structures nécessaires. Donc, le fait de mettre en place ce produit de advisory-là va diminuer les NPL certainement, mais aussi va accélérer la capacité de mise en place des ressources que nous avons. Donc, cette question-là, elle est centrale et nous l'attaquons plutôt dans l'approche amélioration, on va dire, et on va dire le upgrade de l'ensemble de nos clients, quel que soit où ils se trouvent. Voilà.
That's very interesting, and I think there have been a lot of different financial institutions and multilaterals calling for perhaps some project preparation facilities in order to on the SME side, because that can translate into technical assistance, but also if you're looking at project financing that can then bring these SMEs on board. I know there have been the African Bank is trying to do a project facility that is very concessional in many ways. I mean, the African Development Bank definitely has all that, and I know that the DFIs also have it, but I think it's still not enough, I find. I think we still need more capital that goes into this specific segment in order to build up sort of the upstream work that you were talking about, that just to build up capacity so that we have strong SMEs going forward and projects that African SMEs can really benefit from. And I'm sure we will be able to get there, and I'm very curious to see what the new presidency of the bank will do in this regard.
Exactly.
They've highlighted that something that is paramount, so we should continue on a lookout there. I'm just looking at everyone here. I don't know if anyone has a question for our panelists. I see one question right here. Fantastic. So if you could introduce yourself first and foremost, and then ask your question, that would be great.
Thank you very much. A very good morning, dear panelists, moderator. My name is Bekure Jasper Radiri, President, All Africa Association for Small and Medium Enterprises. The subject is very apt, and we're very interested in it. So I would have questions for all the panelists. Please forgive me. So starting with DG, yes, Ben. I hope I got it right. The African Union has a definition now for MSMEs in the continent. And you have been driving support for SMEs in the continent. So what definition of SMEs are you working with? You know, EU has its own definition. You are from Europe. Africa has its own by the African Union. So what definition are you working with? And then for Shelter Africa, I would have asked, what is the nexus between Shelter Africa and SMEs? But I realized that Shelter Africa has a bank now, so you are now in the finance sector. And so you are dealing with 100 million SMEs in Africa, 100 million SMEs and count in Africa. What is the model you subscribe to? Because we have been pushing and advocating for an Afrocentric model of finance. As Africans, we know that Africans are peculiar. And so the model of finance that we believe should work for Africans should be Afrocentric. So what model of finance are you subscribed to, and how do you fit into that model of finance? And then for Tanzania, starting with the Tanzania Agriculture Development Bank. Well, I want to thank you for what you've been doing. I listened to you in the last panel, and I'm listening to you again. But talking about your impact in Tanzania, there is a factoring model that we consider as an alternative recipe to finance. It's your bank subscribe to a factoring model so that MSMEs can benefit, because there are huge gains and benefits for MSMEs if the factoring approach is used. And then finally, for the bank that just won the award for MSMEs, in dealing with MSMEs in Burundi, in Tanzania, in Congo, have you been able to put together a fund that will have MSMEs have easy access to access those funds? Thank you.
I think I've written everything down. Maybe, Bomo, I'm going to start with you on the funds. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of instruments for SMEs, but perhaps you if you want to highlight maybe one or two.
No, thank you so much for the question, and I'm pleased to hear you speaking for a lot of MSMEs across the world. From CRDB Bank perspective, we actually recognize the importance of MSME segment. And as I've mentioned earlier, I had indicated how we are looking at it from CRDB. And it's quite important because I've mentioned between the markets that we operate, almost 95% of the businesses are MSMEs. And when we look at the African statistics, we know for sure we have over 1.2 billion people. And out of this, the inter-African trade itself, it has an opportunity of $3.5 trillion. Now, with this specific opportunity, we have gone back and making sure that our strategy by itself really covers this specific segment. And it is part of our priority. And to make it a priority was not good enough to say we care about the MSMEs. We have gone further, defining it, making sure that we have a dedicated department that is really focusing only on these SMEs. We have created funding that we are able to address the challenges that they have. We know that the fund was not good enough. We have mobilized the funds from these partners that we are working with, not only on this particular panel, but out of the panel as well, to bring more funding that is able to support. But we know as well, the SMEs that we are speaking about, they will never have enough collaterals to cover the facilities. As from the central bank and IFRS, we are required to make sure that we are protecting the shareholders. So we have created, again, instruments through the partners that I have in them here in making sure that we are addressing the challenges of collateral. And they have been extremely useful. And these customers are not defaulting as we might have then. Despite all of these specific initiatives, as CRDB, we have gone an extra mile to create critical training, not only to our staffs, but also to our customers. We are exposing these customers on various market opportunities. We are sending them to China, so Canton Fair. We have created dedicated programs where we are sending our customer to go see. We are sending them in Turkey. We are sending them in Dubai, where we see there is a lot of good corridors that we are able to do more business, so that we are opening it up to the rest. We do also other engagement on the European countries, where we are sending a lot of the trade, where we are doing a lot of trade facilities, and also the commodities that we are sending there. Beyond all of this, we have also make sure that we are creating a conducive atmosphere that will give them better terms to access funding. For example, we have a product that focuses on youth and women, and we have significantly reduced their cost on interest. Part of the engagement that I do with Frank, I have a statement on a maximum limit that I'm able to charge them, because these are protected customer based on the instrument that we have associated with. So if you look at this, I think my only cry now is not only to say that we're able to create additional funding. We know there is a huge gap, and this is not only factoring the aspect related to the factory that you had asked Frank, because we are overseeing also the value chain associated to it. He has been giving a very good support from the CapEx perspective. And after that, there is a lot of other transactions that needs to be funded with hard currency and, of course, non-funded line to support that. So if you look at it, we need additional funding to support a lot of MSMEs, and we might not be enough. That's why we continue working with these specific partners. But equally important, and I know Behadu is going to respond, but I just wanted also to put some additional information. You have asked him about the definition of the MSME, but it is also critical to ensure that we are able to put this definition in a better way, because it also have additional implication on how you are going to support some of these customers. For example, if we will be speaking here about MSME, and you want him to adopt the African Union definition of SME, you might be capping the facility that they are able to offer and they extend to, let's say, $5 million. But his or their definition of MSME could go up to $20 million, for example. So I'm just argue, and I request to be something that can be relooked and make sure that we're able to align. And that's why for us as CRDB, we had adopted the IFC definition when it comes to SME, because it goes to the global standards and really create a lot of opportunities so that we are able to serve more customers. I think he will speak about himself, but I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Frank, over to you on factoring financing and the future receivables, but
yes,
we need to be a bit brief because it's almost 12 o'clock and we have the closing ceremony shortly. Okay. So Frank, I would...
Thank you. As I pointed out earlier on, that CRDB, we have been like the marketing scheme of the financial institution in Tanzania. MSMEs, mostly, they lack collateral. And what we've been trying to show, especially the commercial banks, that lack of collateral does not give somebody unbankability given that he has a project. So the issue of factoring to our the bank has been a very product which can call it a vanilla, because a client comes in with an invoice that needs to be discounted. So we have been doing this whereby we advance funds to the level of tune of 70% of the invoice amount. The only thing that we do is that we sign a tripartite agreement between ourselves, our client, and the payer, so that when the payer pays, it doesn't pay. We sometimes, if we don't put it rightly, they pay to another account. So we ensure that during the payment, they pay through our account so that we can deduct what we've been able to do. So in terms of factoring, we've been doing it well, and that gives confidence to commercial banks that if TADB can be able to do factoring, and it does well, why can't we be able to do, especially given that the commercial banks are doing more on the short-term financing, which is the working capital. And mostly, these factoring are coming on the working capital. So we did that, and for our mandate, which we do short-term, medium, and long-term, we've been able to do that so that we can be able to show the way to commercial banks. Thank you so much.
Frank, thank you very much. In one sentence, what is your definition?
In one sentence, my initial response to your question of definition of SME was, I don't know. But now, having heard also what Boma said, generally, honestly, I've seen so many definitions. Recently, I was in touch with a Nigerian fund who was going to raise money for an SME fund. I said to them, so what will be your funding bracket looking like? Well, between 5 and 20 million for one transaction. So they had, they called it an SME fund, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, what matters is also adding to what Boma said, we have to find a way where, be it larger scale, 10, 12, 15 million, or $20,000, we can address, be it through us or be it through the likes of a trusted banking partner. If we get that done with all the work, for instance, CRDB is doing on the ground, I'm sure they have requests for 10,000, 20,000 or less dollars, moving up the ranks to 10, 15 million. We can do all of that, offer that between us, that's already great, but the basis of everything is bankability. Let me repeat that. So defining it is difficult. Let's try and work on the quality of SMEs, help them, support them to be able to apply for be it 20,000 or 20 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Amadou, the last word is yours. And I think what I understood from the question is Afrocentric financing. I'm assuming is how can we ensure that the money is channeled to African companies that can then bring all these projects to life? I think that was, if I'm correct in assuming, how can you do Afrocentric financing?
Exactement. En fait, il est clair qu'une petite question peut se poser lorsqu'on voit Shelter Afrique autour de ce panel, mais peut-être il faut le voir à deux niveaux. Le premier niveau, c'est que, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, ce qui a été le déclencheur, en réalité, c'est la crise du Covid et aussi un peu la crise russo-ukrainienne. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? L'ensemble des corridors pendant le Covid, de la Chine, de la Turquie ou d'ailleurs, ont été coupés. Et lorsqu'ils ont été coupés, le secteur de l'immobilier de manière générale a été soit totalement arrêté ou bien une augmentation des coûts, ce qui a peut-être impacté la viabilité d'un certain nombre de nos projets. Parce que nous avions financé selon un modèle bien défini et après, une crise internationale a tout chamboulé. C'est pour cela que nous nous sommes maintenant intéressés à l'écosystème et à la chaîne de valeur. Donc, on intervient, comme l'a dit tout de suite Pedro, sur le montage d'un PPF qui va nous permettre de mettre à la disposition de l'ensemble de cette chaîne de valeur-là de suffisamment de données fiables et surtout faciliter l'accès à des marchés régionaux et donc créer des corridors, comme Boma disait, maintenant des corridors intra-africains. Donc c'est un peu ça l'objectif parce que le PPF que nous allons signer bientôt, on le signe avec une entité africaine de renom. Et l'idée, c'est derrière, après, lorsque nous allons montrer la crédibilité, on va dire, de l'ensemble des acteurs, leur montée en capacité, le sous-fonds dont je parlais tout à l'heure, qui sera un sous-fonds abondé en grande partie aussi, on l'espère, par des capitaux africains, nous permettra d'intervenir de manière plus substantielle. Donc, globalement, pour ne pas être long, c'est ce que je voulais dire, mais aussi ne pas oublier que l'ensemble de ces acteurs acteurs qui sont dans le secteur des petites et moyennes entreprises, ils ont besoin d'un logement derrière. Donc, nous avons aussi des modèles très intéressants, par exemple des modèles sur l'agriculture, où, étant entendu que ce sont des agriculteurs, ils n'ont pas une traçabilité bancaire facile, nous trouvons le moyen de monétiser, on va dire, leur production agricole. Donc, ce sont, on va dire, des unités urbaines où on a la partie logement, mais aussi une petite partie, on va dire, de production agricole, et on arrive à trouver le moyen, et on le fait aussi dans certaines villes, en s'inspirant un peu de ce qui se fait en Chine ou en Inde, où on a créé ce qu'on appelle la 4e pièce, où, par exemple, le tailleur ou bien l'artisan va avoir un garage qui va être transformé en unité de production industrielle. Et c'est cette unité de production-là qui va nous permettre de baquer la solvabilité du logement que nous allons mettre en place. Donc, il y a énormément de possibilités sur lesquelles nous sommes en train de travailler avec le secteur des PME-PMI, et pour dire que c'est vraiment une vue globale qu'il faut avoir. Et étant entendu que nous travaillons pour les États aussi, nous accompagnons les États à la construction des villes, et des villes bien connectées, des villes qui vont donner suffisamment de clients aux SMI, et aussi une contribution que Shelter Afrique a dans ce modèle holistique. Merci.
Well, that's a great way to finish. And again, to the panelists, thank you very much.